Hello, everyone. One of the great questions that we have to ask for everybody who is involved in the humanities and the intellectual life is why study great literature? Why study the humanities at all? You are probably familiar with the reality of the humanities in decline, that many people see the humanities, great books, literature, philosophy, religious studies, and all the other great disciplines involved with a concern for the human condition as simply a waste of time because it doesn't offer one job security after graduation. This is a fundamental misunderstanding of the purpose of education, the university system, and of course what the humanities are all about. The humanities are fundamentally about us. That is why the term humanitas is what it is. Cicero invented that term to describe the study of humanity. And it is in the great works of culture, principally the great works of literature, that we see the human condition in its totality. Culture, as my former teacher, Roger Scruton, described it, is the oasis of emotional knowledge, that interior knowledge that comes from engaging with the priceless and great works of art, literature, music, scripture, etc., and what they have to teach us about emotional knowledge, the emotional knowledge that entails sympathy, empathy, love, how we relate to each other as human beings. And there is no greater source of wisdom into the human condition than our great books. For the great works of literature are all ultimately works of emotional knowledge and emotional wisdom. The great books deal with emotional knowledge and emotional wisdom because they fundamentally deal with us. And we are emotional creatures. We are creatures of love who desire love. We are creatures who have been loved and seek to reciprocate love. While it is true that humans possess a rational faculty, it is also, and perhaps more importantly true, that we possess a heart. The heart that human philosophers and writers have been dealing with for 2,000 years, trying to unlock and understand its many mysteries. My own books deal with the importance of literature and the emotional knowledge we gain from them. The Odyssey of Love, a Christian guide to the great books, deals with 2,500 years of literature, from Hesiod and Homer down through Dante, Shakespeare, Dickens, and concluding with Tolstoy, examining the realities of love and the emotional heart that we find in over 2.5 millennia of great literature. It is a window into that oasis of emotional knowledge and how these great stories teach us the values of sympathy, empathy, compassion, kindness, love, and forgiveness. But it is not just the great works in their totality, but also the classics that deal with emotional knowledge. My newest book, Finding Arcadia, Wisdom, Truth, and Love in the Classics, is solely devoted to an overview of the Greek and Latin classics. Again, Hesiod, Homer, the Greek playwrights, the Latin poets, Virgil, Catullus, Ovid, and ultimately ending with the last great writer of the Latin language, St. Augustine. It is in great literature, it is in the oasis of our artistic masterpieces of culture, for again, this is what culture is all about. The artistic masterpieces dealing with the human heart, with emotional knowledge, that teach us the essence of what it means to be human. By reading great books, and it is only in the truly great books that we find that tug, that pull of the human heart, that we find the meaning of our human condition, and why so many of these voices, these faces that are so distant, seem so familiar to us, whether they are historical characters or fictional characters. All of us have read books and encountered stories that seem to be so very real. Fiction is not make-believe. True fiction is ultimately true reality. Fiction describes reality through the form of stories. Those who belittle fiction as fantastical nonsense and make-believe are often the most emotionally aloof human beings that you will ever encounter. They are crude, they are crass, they are obnoxious. They wouldn't know how to relate to a human being in their suffering or in their joy if it was directly presented to them in the face. And this is why the study of the humanities, and especially the study of great literature, the great books, and the classics, are so important, because they deal with that emotional knowledge, revealing to us the magnanimity of the human heart and the human soul, and how, in order to live and love in a better world, we need to have those values of mercy, kindness, compassion, forgiveness. Because if we don't, if we pursue a life aloof of that emotional knowledge, if we pursue a life dedicated to revenge, violence, cruelty, crudity, we see how those stories end. Death and destruction. Yet in that death and destruction, there is usually a pathway out, a character or a moment in the story where that loving compassion and kindness, that mercy, that dignity, that respect offers us the path to forgiveness and reconciliation. The stories that our great literature tell us, the great poems that have so moved the human heart for millennia and centuries, all tell us something that really is ultimately the same. Love, not power, is what makes the world go round. And in the 21st century world, a world saturated with power politics and power dynamics and relations, recovering the reality of human love and human kindness, that emotional knowledge of how to relate to one another, is all so very important. And for any of you who enjoy great literature, who would like a window into the classics and into the great books, my own works, Finding Arcadia and the Odyssey of Love, offer a pilgrimage through 2,500 years of the great works of Western literature, revealing to us the important emotional, spiritual, and indeed interior knowledge that these great books contain, and how they are always available to us if we just have the audacity to pick up and read.